Hey, you came back! Cool. Let's get right back into it. Here's more stuff that made me happy in 2020. Alright, now that we are finally done with animation, let's move on to movies. I didn't watch many movies this year, but boy am I glad I saw Palm Springs. The premise, dude is stuck in a Groundhog Day style time loop and inadvertently pulls someone else into it with him, and now they have to keep living the same time loop, knowing everything else resets, but the two of them don't. Putting aside for a second that this movie is excellent both as a fun, lighthearted comedy and as an honestly moving story and think piece, or the fact that it has a fantastic cast that does an amazing job at selling every subtlety of the plot, I just kind of love that right from the start this movie just assumes you've seen other time loop stories and know what the general deal is, so it wastes no time before doing its own thing with it and taking it in a fresh direction. I love this movie so much and I wholeheartedly recommend it. That's the only movie I've seen that actually came out in 2020, but that's only because I haven't had a chance to watch Tenet and Greenland yet. And of course, Pixar's Soul, which just came out. I've been hearing rave reviews about Tenet as another excellent mindbender of a film, so that's probably worth your time. And Greenland is one that I'm personally hyped for because it's a disaster movie. It's been so long since we had one of those that wasn't the news. Speaking of, it may not have been released in 2020, but Norwegian film The Quake blew me the hell away when I watched it for the first time recently. It's a loose sequel to another fantastic Norwegian disaster movie called The Wave, and if you ever thought that you might enjoy disaster movies if they actually had quality acting, interesting multi-dimensional characters, and good writing, and not just incredible effects, then you need to check these two out. This is not just a Hollywood blockbuster schlock. These movies are so well made and terrifying that while watching The Quake with a friend, we actually had to pause it halfway through because we needed to start breathing again. Moving past movies and on to our next topic. Over on the TV front, besides The Good Place, which we already mentioned, we also had Season 2 of The Umbrella Academy, which proved to us all that an adaptation doesn't have to be loyal to the source material to be friggin' excellent. It had little to do with the comic it's based on, but oh boy was it a blast and a ton of equal parts comedy, drama, romance, action, and stellar acting from all involved. Shouldn't be that much of a surprise given that Season 1 was friggin' awesome. And next up we have games. This year brought us some new casual classics like Fall Guys, the cute colorful platformer Battle Royale, and Among Us, a slightly older game that rose to new heights of popularity in 2020. Both games are cute little time wasters, and I like that you can knock out a round of them between doing chores without spending too much time on them, but you already know all about them, so let's talk about the games that do just grab you and don't let go. First up on my list is Station Flow, possibly my favorite tycoon-style game that actually came out in 2020. Basically, you build and manage a subway station, having to make sure everything is clearly and easily available from everywhere, and both the easy quick flow of people and their needs are all taken care of, including everything from signage to wheelchair accessibility. Next up would be Surviving Mars, which didn't actually come out this year, but I sure have been playing it a lot lately. It's a Mars colony builder and a definitely fun one given that I currently have 184 hours of playing it on Steam. 81 of them are just in the past 2 weeks apparently. Wow, really? Jesus. Anyway, let's not forget about Monster Camp, a sequel to Monster Prom, a comedy multiplayer dating sim where you basically try and woo a bunch of monsters with some of the funniest fucking writing in gaming nowadays. No, seriously, just listen to the soundbite from when I played it with some friends.
Let's start a literature.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, no! No! Stop this game! I want to get off.
Okay, she's like,
Monster Prom was nothing short of comedy brilliance, and Monster Camp turns it up to 11 with even better writing, way more characters, each more gorgeously drawn than the next, and some surprisingly heartfelt moments for a game that's supposed to just mostly be jokes? What the fuck? And speaking of interesting characters, it's been out for years now, but the game I probably played the most this year would have to be Space Station 13. The star attraction in the best game you've never heard of category, Space Station 13 is a role-playing game, and by that I don't mean it's an RPG, I mean it's an online game where you play a role. There's a ton of different servers, and each one has its own style of gameplay, concept, lore, and rules. But the general common theme is, it's the future, you work on a space station in a job of your choice with other players playing the rest of the station's staff. Jobs can be entirely technical and gameplay based, or they can be entirely roleplay based, or anywhere in between. You could be a security officer, a doctor, a therapist, chef, janitor, really whatever you want, with most of the actual roleplay taking place via the chat. Sometimes shit explodes and clones run amok and other really crazy shit happens and you just have to deal with it. The game has servers ranging from the silly and shitposty, where you basically just go to mess around like an idiot, or high roleplay servers with a dedicated player base, fascinating intertwining plotlines, in-depth characters, and lore so deep that it has its own freaking wiki. I have been playing on the latter myself, and wow, has it been a good year for in-depth sweeping stories on the server I play on. Also, did I mention it's free? Because it's free. The graphics may look ridiculously basic, but their simplicity actually helps you get immersed because they leave imagining everything that's going on up to you, rather than rely on a bunch of pre-rendered uncanny valley animations the way a 3D game would. And the fact that instead of NPCs, you're dealing with actual real people who can respond to everything you do and say, and are also committing to a character, makes the whole thing incredibly more immersive than most single-player RPGs could ever hope to be. You know what else has been made better via multiplayer this year? Parkitect! That amusement park building game that totally isn't Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, you can't prove anything. But with 3D graphics, mod support, and now, multiplayer! I was kind of on the fence about Parkitect when it came out because of its similarity to the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise, but with a variety of updates that came out through the years, and now the wonderful multiplayer update, this game has won me over, and if you used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon and think you'd like to try a modern take on it that keeps some parts of the formula and tosses out others to replace them with their own thing, definitely give this one a whirl. Last but not least, we have my favorite PC game, Frostpunk. In this game, you build and run a steampunk city in England that is trying to survive global cooling, of all things, in a sudden ice age that came out of nowhere. The game came out in 2018 and left my jaw hanging with just how incredible it is. Unlike more laid-back games such as SimCity, it is unforgivingly difficult, but all the more rewarding for it. And the campaign story and challenges are tailored to perfection. The game may have come out 2 years ago, but 2020 saw the release of 2 new excellent DLCs for it, as well as a crowdfunding campaign for a board game based on the game that, frankly, from what I've seen, looks absolutely amazing, and looks to be a mix of my favorite PC game, Frostpunk, with my favorite board game, Pandemic Legacy. I got my order in, and if you like board games, I definitely recommend considering it too. Next thing that stole my heart this year was podcasts, and not just any podcasts. Audio dramas. If you've never listened to an audio drama, they're basically plot-based podcasts with actors and a plot, and they're essentially like a TV show for your ears. Except unlike a TV show, everyone can make one. Which means there's a ton of indie-made podcasts out there that have the sort of personal charm, audience involvement, and rampant creativity you may never get out of a big corporate production. Despite the name, audio dramas don't have to be dramas. They can be comedies, action, horror, mystery, sci-fi, slice of life, or anything in between or beyond. And they are just the most wonderful thing you could listen to while doing chores, driving, working, playing games, walking anywhere, or just sitting down to listen to them because they're just that good. First one on that list would have to be the Amelia Project. Now entering its newest season, this laugh-out-loud hilarious comedy follows the staff of an agency that helps people fake their own deaths. Each episode usually focuses on a different client and their story, who they are, why they want to fake their own deaths, and how they'd like to do it. And as if the brilliantly written characters aren't enough to hold the entire show on their own, the latest season also throws in a grade A fascinating plot to boot and really hook you in. I can't tell you how many times I've driven in my car this year smiling ear to ear while listening to this show because I was just enjoying myself so dang much. The same can also be said for Wooden Overcoats, a drop-dead hysterical British comedy in every positive sense of the word that tells the story of the staff of a funeral home on a tiny British island having to deal with a new, better funeral home opening right across the street from them. The acting is straight up the best I've heard in any audio drama, and the running gags would make even the writers of shows like Arrested Development or Archer so incredibly proud. There's a reason every time someone on Reddit asks for a comedic audio drama recommendation that they tend to say, no need to recommend Wooden Overcoats, I've already listened to it. But if comedy is less your cup of tea, why not check out McGillicuddy and Murderous Pawn Shop? This slightly hidden gem I came across only last week has already intrigued me so much that I've listened to all 3.5 seasons of it that are currently out, and again, I only found out about it less than a week ago. The story follows Melinda Maudie Markle, a plucky 1920s gal with a humdrum life who one day upon poking around her favorite mesmerizing 3-story tall pawn shop comes across a magical item of sorts that turns her life upside down and introduces her to a dangerous world of magic, murder, and mystery. Dear listeners, I cannot describe myself as either a fan of the mystery genre nor of 1920s period pieces, but heavens to Betsy if this show hasn't won me over hook, line, and sinker. It has made a fan out of me, and I'd wager if you give it a chance, the same might be said for you. Right. Cutting away from podcasts and onto the musical front, I did not know that the Beetlejuice musical was a thing until Spotify told me, but holy hell, that soundtrack was my most listened to album of 2020 according to Spotify, because it's just that friggin' excellent. I am so glad I randomly came across it on Spotify's recommendations, and as a matter of fact, you know what? How about we just give Spotify its own win? I listened to so much great music and audio dramas through it this year, just, yeah, you go Spotify. And no, we're not sponsored by them, it's just friggin' Spotify's awesome, dudes. The other musical soundtrack I had a blast with this year was Six, which is basically about what would happen if the six wives of Henry VIII decided to band together to make band and sing songs about their respective lives and deaths in various styles of excellent modern music. Some of the best moments of 2020 involved me sitting in my car with a friend who also loves the songs from the show and just rocking out together. Over on the internet musical front, two musical artists shine the brightest in my book. Remixer Pluffaduff with his excellent Baby I'm Back remixes that get me hyped up every time I listen to them, and the Living Tombstone, which has been on an absolute breakout roll this year, knocking out countless hits with his new foray into creating his own originals rather than just fantastic songs based on familiar fandoms. The attempt was incredibly successful, with my personal favorite being his song Drunk, which is also accompanied by some grade A animation. I love this guy's work and hope I get to work with him again one day, but dang has he ascended recently. Last but not least, wrapping up this year with a perfect mix of grim stress and enjoyable, cheerful comedy, Robbie Williams' Can't Stop Christmas is the most appropriate 2020 holiday song, besides just being a really fun listen. That does it for music, movies, shows, games, and podcasts that have made my year, but while you're here, I just want to tell you a little bit about what made the year better for me on a personal level. Stuff you may not be able to watch or download, but they were shining lights for me in 2020, and for that they deserve to be recognized, and who knows, maybe you can find something sort of like them in your own life. Let's start off with something very small that had a big impact on me. When everything first started going crazy and scary, and it felt like the world was stopping and nobody knew if it would ever resume, I went to the grocery store and saw cinnamon cola. I'd wanted to try it for ages at that point, but never actually saw it around. Every time they imported it, they ran out of stock before I got a chance to see it. Suddenly seeing it on the shelf at the grocery store in the middle of all the tension was the first sign that the future still has good things and wonderful surprises in store, which is what this list is all about, really. Oh yeah, plus, it was delicious! Speaking of delicious, my snack of the year was Milka chocolate with the mini Oreos in it. I'm not as crazy about Oreos as a lot of people seem to be, but dang, this thing is delicious. I also started tutoring a lot more often, which turned out to be an absolute joy. Teaching kids to draw and seeing their art style grow and develop is nothing short of wonderful, and I've really become good friends with one of the families whose kid I teach. Not to mention, it was a very appreciated source of income in a year where selling my comic books at convention was just no longer an option. I also got involved as a beta tester / dev team member, kinda, for a game called Operation Water Park that's looking to be an extremely promising water park building game with some truly cool features, concepts, and high quality gameplay. It's still far too early in development to know for sure, but just being able to discuss it, provide ideas for it, and make concept art to the actual developer of the game and know my ideas are actually heard and sometimes even affect the game has been an invaluable source of light, energy, passion, and positivity for me in what were otherwise some incredibly stressful times. I may not know coding or a lot of 3D modeling, but I know a thing or two about what makes for a good tycoon game, and if the game is going to end up as what it's aiming for, this is really going to be a next level quality product. Meanwhile, in the political front, a topic that I usually shy away from, a lot has happened all around the world, but I'm choosing to focus on the one thing I heard about that involved no stress or fretting for me, but just pure joy. The country I live in, which most of you know, but I will avoid naming because I don't want the comment section exploding by the sheer mention of its name, has finally made peace or normalized relations with Dubai and lots of other countries around the Middle East that we previously weren't exactly friends with. Years ago, I dreamt of going to Dubai one day, and now that we're at peace with them, that's finally an option. As with every political topic, there are upsides and downsides, of course, but the Middle East is very much known for its political turmoil, so the fact we've had several peace treaties signed recently is nothing short of amazing to me. And last but so not least, 2020 is the year I got into voice acting. I've always done a bit of voice acting for my own animations, but after listening to the Amelia Project, I decided I really want to try making something more of it. I found a website called Casting Call and started to audition for various roles in audio dramas, games, and animations, and I gotta tell you, even during the most nerve-wracking moments of this year when I didn't feel like I had the energy to do anything, productive or otherwise, for some reason, going on casting call, who I promise aren't sponsoring this video, and just jumping from role to role, doing various voices in different genres, jumping from one character to another and from one mindset to the next, voicing cartoony villains 1 second, dramatic emotional tones to the next, and deep existential horrors a minute later, was so much fun that honestly sometimes I would see the audition as the star attraction. If anyone actually contacted me back about my audition, well, that's just a wonderful bonus, frankly. It really surprised me to find out that even in a dark and stressful year, and even at the age of 32, when you think you already know all of your likes and dislikes and who you generally are, you can still come across a brand new passion and interest that comes out of nowhere and takes you by storm, reigniting that flame in your heart. It really got me excited to see what other passions and interests have I just not discovered yet. I thought I knew them all, apparently I don't. This year would have been so much rougher for me if I didn't have voice acting as a brand new flame in my heart that refused to go out the way only a new flame could refuse to go. It's been fun, it's been wonderful, and it's been an inseparable part for me of this crazy year. That just about sums up my list of things that made me happy in 2020, or at least those that I didn't forget to mention, or just topics too vast and deep to belong on a fun little internet list of cool games, TV shows, and snacky snacks. Thank you for taking the time to appreciate these things with me. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking, commenting, etc. Not because of some algorithm, just because it would let me know you enjoy this video I put several days of work into. That's kind of my only way of finding out. I really hope I helped you see the surprising amount of fun, interesting things that have been hiding all along under 2020's surface. Things that either brought you love and excitement already, or if you choose to try them, could very well bring you much love and excitement in 2021 and onward. Remember to appreciate the little things, my friends. I've been Tomix, and I wish you all a very happy new year.